Hello, everybody. It's Stephen and Walter here for another episode of So Chatty. This is episode 69. Walter will probably giggle now. He didn't giggle. That's unusual. It's July the 29th, 2022. So let's jump right into our current projects. What has Walter been doing? What have you been doing?
Well, I started some shirts, but I didn't get back to them after I had the shoulder pain. And which is my shoulder pain is almost all gone. So
I'm not doing anything rude. I'm just, that's better.
Okay.
Bring it down on my level.
My shoulder pain is almost gone.
Which is a good thing. So it was muscle related. It wasn't his heart or anything like that he jumped to all these horrible conclusions about. So he will live. That's good to know, I guess. Means I'm still not getting all that money, but whatever. So, and that's what, so do you have any classes coming up?
No.
Oh, okay. No classes. All right.
No, actually, we were talking about that. A bunch of us from the sewing group went to dinner earlier this week.
Yeah, and I wasn't invited.
And we were discussing classes, and it was really until somebody had a project that they wanted to do that we haven't done before. And so Brendan sort of said, the teacher said that he'd be willing to teach a class if he had something new to do that somebody wanted to do. So
oh, you mean, I thought it sounded like the way you were saying it, that somebody came up with something new, but
no. People haven't really been coming up with anything new that is a new project. So it's kind of useless to go back and redo one that we've already done. So
yeah, that's true. Hey, maybe you could teach a class on bag making.
Yeah, I don't want to do that.
Yeah, whatever.
Because a lot of times when I make a bag, I just do it off the top of my head. I don't just do.
That must be very
pattern.
Difficult. Can you get your head underneath that needle?
Yeah, I can. Yeah,
right off the top of your head. It explains why there's no hair there. Oh, okay. That would be it. So didn't someone say something about having a sew day or something?
Yeah, well, they were talking about doing a sew day, but it's a live day where we would go to a location and sew there. And the idea was that if somebody was having trouble, let's say putting buttons on or something like that, there would be other people there that could show them how to do it.
Oh, a troubleshooting day.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what Brennan needs to teach online. Common problems people have and show them, like putting in zippers or buttons or other things like that. Instead of doing a whole project, he could gear it towards, like, he could do a...
Well, I've suggested that to him. I said, well, why don't you do some videos, and post them on how to, like putting in a zipper or putting on something like that. And he doesn't seem to be too interested in doing that.
Okay.
So,
well, because I think that would be very helpful to a lot of people, because you hear people saying all the time, oh, I wish I knew how to do this, or they're afraid to do things because it looks like it's intimidating, which it is until you actually do it. And then most of those things that seem intimidating, at least I have always found, are not so intimidating once you've done them. Like the first time I ever made a really elaborate bag, and I thought, can I do this? Well, yes, I could. Just follow the instructions. I guess that means you have to have a really good pattern, though, and really good instructions, because they're not all. In fact, we're going to talk about what makes a good pattern a little bit later today on the episode. So that's what you've been up to.
Well, not a lot. I mean, last week I was doing stuff outside the house, and I was doing.
And then you were in pain. And,
I was in pain, and I had half a hose reel installed, and so I went back and finished it this week.
Half the hose reel. Okay. I just have a vision that you went to Crappy Tire and came home with half a hose reel. I don't know, but anyways, yeah. Okay, well, that sounds all exciting. Not. What have I been working on? Well, I've been working on a couple of things. So first of all, let me switch over here. You have seen this, but now it's completely done. It's my Christmas star quilt. That's what I'm calling it. It's actually a Sherry McConnell and Chelsea Stratton, daughter and mother team, who have it in their book that I talked about on Idiot Quilter, Home for the Holidays. And so I took their pattern for this. And of course, I used my color scheme for it. you know, it's kind of one of those things like, is it Christmas? Because I did use some Christmas fabrics in it, and if you had a closer look at it, you would see there's sort of a Christmassy fabric in the diamonds in the center, and the sashing is Christmassy, and I think the red is Christmassy too. That's in there, but the stars themselves are not all Christmas fabrics either. So I suppose you could use this any time of the year. Just don't look too close for those smaller details to make it Christmas. But I think it turned out pretty good. What do you think?
Yeah, it looks very nice.
Yeah, it looks good. Okay, fine. High praise. And this, I just finished this one this morning. I finished the binding on it. This is supposed to be a Christmas quilt as well, and I did it with a jelly roll that was marked as Christmas fabrics, but they're not that Christmassy. So I'm calling it the winter quilt instead. Now I did do, if I can blow it up here and show you. I hate how this thing blows up things on the Mac. Okay, there you get a little better look at it. It's snowflakes and swirls. And if you look at the fabric that's here, you know, some of it does look Christmassy, but others of it don't. And I was a little disappointed in that when I got the roll all laid out. But on the other hand, I'm really not disappointed in the way that the quilt turned out, because it turned out pretty good. It is not a Bargello, although it's got a bit of that in it, looking like a Bargello, but it's not a Bargello. And you know me and Bargellos. I've not had a lot of luck with the Bargello. Oops, go one down a little bit more. But I'm pretty happy with the way it turned out, and I got the binding on. And actually, I did a video, which will go up in a week or so's time, on how to do, how I do binding. Binding is something that people are always usually a little bit afraid of to do, like what we were just talking about. And binding is not hard to do, but when you watch a video the first time and they show you how to do it, it can be a little mind-boggling. And I know some people, they don't do machine binding. They do hand sew it, or half of it they sew on with a sewing machine, and then when they finish it with hand sewing. And I'm not a good hand sewer. In fact, I'm horrible at it, so I don't do that. So in that video that'll come out in another week's time or so, I'll show you how I do it and the little tips and tricks I have for getting decent binding. And you know, it's amazing how a quilt changes when you put binding on it. It just finishes it off so nicely with a binding. Of course, they are a necessity too, because if you don't put a binding on it, your quilt will unravel. So when you wash it, so yeah, you need to do that. But anyways, I was kind of happy with the way that turned out. And right now, I don't have anything to show you for it. I'm working, well, I do have something to show you. I just started this project, and it's a gnome, Christmas gnome table runner. You know me and gnomes. Can you ever have too many gnomes? I think not. So this is one of the panels that will go into this table runner. It's a fair-sized table runner because there's about 5 panels in this in total or so. And then you have a then you have a you have a border, and of course your backing and everything. And technically speaking, this is not going to be quilted because there is no space for quilting on it. And I found it kind of funny that in the pattern, well, they did put a little bit of quilting in the trees. It's very hard to see. I don't know if you can see that, but it gives a little bit of texture. But anyways, I thought it's kind of fun. And it might be a Christmas present. Who knows? Or it may not be. So, whatever. So speaking of gifts, I got asked by a friend if they could have one of my quilts to give as a gift to a person they know that I don't know. And they said they would pay for it. There's a dilemma. I don't know if you've ever been in this dilemma when you've made something and somebody wants to have it and they'll say, you know, I'll pay you for it. What's your answer to that? Now, my answer to it after I thought about it was, I will just give them the quilt, because basically it's sitting with all my other quilts. I even forgot this particular one that this person wanted. was even in my set of quilts. So, I mean, and I made it in 2020. So, it's better off that it goes to somebody who will appreciate it and use it or not. But when someone offers to pay for something, and if they're not somebody who really understands what fabric costs and your time costs and all that, I think they think they maybe can get something like this for like $50. And we all know, as quilters or as sewists, that doesn't even cover the cost of your materials usually. But if you turned around and told them what the real price was, and I said to Walter, I don't think it would have been unreasonable for me to put a price on that quilt of $300, and I think that's cheap for it. It is. It's very cheap. But this is somebody that I know, it's a friend, and I decided, no, I'll just give it to them. So that's what I'm going to do. But have you ever been in that situation? Also, the other part that does bother me a little bit is that it's not actually, I'm not giving this to my friend. I'm giving it to my friend to give to someone that's his friend that I don't know. So, yeah, like maybe this other person saw one of the quilts that I'd given this person before, because I had given this person some quilts before. Maybe they saw it and said, oh, I'd really like something like that. And an occasion has come up and the person thought, oh, this is something you would want. I would get it. But anyways, it is what it is. But it puts you as a creator in a very awkward position. So I said to Walter the other day, and I'm going to make him answer again. So someone came up to you that you knew and said, I really like that shirt that you made. Would you give me one or make me one? I'll pay you for it. What would be your reaction?
Depends on who it is.
Okay. But let's say
if it's somebody that I didn't know very well, I would probably try and turn them down.
Why?
Because it's a lot of effort for me to make one for myself.
Right.
Let alone try and make something for someone else. The other thing is I'm afraid, especially on a garment, if it'll fit right or not on somebody else. The other thing is it's a lot of work and it's a lot of money, even just for the fabric and everything else to do. And I don't want to spend the time to do that.
So let's say though you decided you would do it and you were going to charge.
Yeah, that's a good
question.
What
would you charge for one of your shirts like this one?
I might charge for the fabric, but not for the labor.
Okay. Maybe if they're a friend, you wouldn't charge them for the labor. You just say, cover the cost of the fabric and I'll make you one. But let's say this is not somebody that's that friendly to, or and let's say, you get sometimes people will say, well, no, I really want one. Please, please. I want that. And I mean, I know with you don't have a real hard time of saying, no, screw off. But what would you say to them then? Like maybe to discourage them, but realistically, what would you charge? I'm putting you on the spot.
Well, I don't know. I think I would explain to them how much it cost me to make one of these things.
Okay, but
right? I don't want to say that I'm gonna charge any. Like, I mean,
okay, but
I'll
I
say
want
$100.
No. For one of the shirts you make, $100?
Yeah.
I don't think so. I would say $200. $200. That would.
Yeah, probably.
They'd say, well, at Walmart they're only $19.99.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, and they're Walmart. Okay, but no, what I'm saying is, I think this is a dilemma that happens to a lot of people who are creators. They have people who aren't creators. They see something, they get this thing in their head that they really, really want that, and they'll pay for it. But do they really want to pay for it? Because I think in their mind they're thinking $50. I mean, we've had this discussion before about, you can never make money from something that you make at all. Like I was just watching Adam Sews, and Adam Sews, he has a store. He has an online store, and he makes all kinds of things. He's a prolific creator, and he was showing on the latest one, his Friday Sews video today, he was showing this bag, that a couple of bags that he had just finished making that are going to a store, and they're absolutely beautiful. And he does such great work, and his color and his fabric choices are really great. They're a little bit gitchy in like he uses tulip pink. He loves tulip pink and that kind of stuff. But I mean, you look at him and go, oh yeah, I'd really like that. Now I didn't check on his website to see what he's going to be selling those for, but I don't know how, like the time he takes to put those bags together, I am sure he's probably not selling them in his store for what they should really be valued at, because you know what'll happen, people are glancing through a store online and they look at it. It's like shopping on Amazon. You see something, you go, oh, I'm not paying that for it. And non-sewers, non-creators, I think would do that. So I
Yeah,
don't know how
but
you could make money.
some people, I think, value their stuff a little differently. Okay, let's say you make a quilt like the one that you showed here or whatever, and you've got all this extra fabric left over, right? That you don't know what to do with, so you decide to make a bag out of it or something like that.
Okay, so what you're
Right?
saying
So
is,
they're making it look like, okay, I've got this extra fabric, I don't know what to do with it, so I'm making something from it, right?
yeah,
And then and so they make it sound like it's found fabric that they haven't paid for because they're going to throw it out anyway.
but you don't tell people that.
No, I know that. But
That
anyway,
wouldn't make good
okay.
business sense.
So then the other thing is that if it's something that they've done a lot of, like make a bag, and they've done it so many times that they can really rip one off quick, right? Then maybe at that point in time you are able to make it fast enough and you use enough material that is what you might call extra material. They may be able to justify what the cost is.
I suppose. But I think the bottom line here is you're never going to get what they're worth. So, like, for example, go back to my quilt here. If I was going to try and sell that, what do you think I would sell it for? That's a large quilt. It's about 90 inches by no, sorry, it's about 65, 68 inches wide by about 92 inches long. So it's a full size quilt. It's short of being a queen on that kind of thing. So what do you think if I was to sell that to somebody, what price would I put on it? What would you pay for it, not knowing anything? Let's pretend for a second you don't know anything about fabric or sewing or time it takes.
$200.
Insult. No way. I wouldn't sell that quilt for less than $300 to $350. Now, let's figure out the cost of the fabric in this. That was a jelly roll for the strips, and that jelly roll was $67. Okay, so that, and I only needed one, but I needed the border fabrics for that, and there is at least a meter or more than a meter, I mean, almost 2 meters of border fabric to do the wide border in there.
What about background fabric?
Now, background fabric has got, well, I bought wide 108 inch, and there is 3 meters of 108 inch, and 108 inch runs anywhere between $24 a meter up to $32 a meter wherever you buy it. I think I probably got the background fabric there. I think I got it on sale. It was Fit for a Queen that Tracy at Whirls and Swirls sometimes put up, and it was on sale for, I think at that price, usually it's $75. It's pre-packaged, and I think she had it on sale for $60 at the time. So let's say, and it takes the full package. So 60 plus 67 is $127. Then there's binding, that's a little bit extra, and that little inner border on that. So say, let's say $127 and add another 10 or so, because those aren't that big. So that's 147. So $150 worth of materials. That's not counting the thread in there. Okay. Now, how long did it take me to put it together? Well, it took me several days to put it together. And then how long did it take me to quilt it on the long arm? This one took like about 6 hours, 7 hours to quilt because it's a fairly dense.
So you're looking at more like $500.
Yeah, I'm under just in materials alone. Now, I've heard some people say that one of the ways you can figure it out is you take whatever it costs you to make it in terms of fabric and everything and double it for it. But I don't know. There's no standard for this kind of thing. But I guess my point is, because we've had this discussion before about quilts don't get, or things that people make do not get the price that they should really get. But I guess the point is when someone comes up to you and says, oh, I'd really like one of your quilts, I'll pay you for it. I think what they are thinking in their head is this is only going to cost me $50, $100, not what it's really worth. I think you'd floor them. You turn around and say, sure, no problem, $500. And they'd probably laugh in your face. You're kidding. It's a blanket. No, it's not. So anyways, that was the dilemma I was sort of in. And I just decided, you know, I'm not doing anything with it. I didn't even remember I had that one until I looked through my pile. If this brings joy to somebody else and it's great and he is a friend and everything, and does it matter to me what he does with it? No, because somebody said once a quilt is out of your hands, once you give a quilt away, you no longer have any say over how it's going to be used. So if it ends up as a dog's bed, it ends up as a dog's bed or whatever. So yeah, you have to let it go. I guess it's like your children. I have to leave the nest, although kids today don't seem to be doing that much. But anyways, I just thought it would be interesting to know what you would sell your shirts for, but yeah, or your bags. You make a lot of bags at Christmas time. Well, you got to make a bag for our neighbors, right?
Yeah.
And you told, oh no, I'll just make it. They said they would pay for the materials.
Yeah.
But what they didn't take in consideration was labor.
Yeah.
You know, because I think people think you just rattle these things off. You don't. And then when you start making stuff for other people, then which are where they're going to pay you, it's no longer fun. It becomes a business. And then, yeah. So, So bottom line is, I'm just giving this to my friend and he can do with it what he pleases. Okay. So anyways, I want to discuss that. Okay, before I forget, Craft and Chat is coming up this coming Wednesday. Today is July the 29th. So Craft and Chat, first Wednesday of every month. And that's August the 3rd. So bingo. In the show notes below is the Zoom link. But any of you on my mailing list, I sent out the Zoom link to you people this morning. So you should have it by now. So, and you come, you do whatever, come and go as you please. Starts at 1 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, runs till about 4. So, it means I need a project. Well, maybe working on these gnomes or something like that to get ahead. And we had the International Stitch Marathon a week ago. That is why we did not have a So Chatty last Friday. I know you're all upset. You're crying in your cereal. Yeah, I know. Boo-hoo, boo-hoo. Yeah, probably didn't even notice we didn't have one up. But anyways, yeah, we had the International Stitch Marathon. And I had some other things on too at the same time that day. At one point, I was doing 2 Zooms at the same time. And that's not easy to do. Believe me. It was okay. A report was at the end of it that there was over 100 people there at any given during the day. I thought there was only about 36, but maybe after I left, more came on. I don't know how the statistics were working. Doesn't really matter. The people that were there, I think they all had a good time. Wasn't my show. I was supposedly a co-host, but I really didn't do anything. I did get asked to do some games, and I created some for it. But when I asked as to when the game should be played, we decided, well, when there's a lull in the conversation. Well, guess what? We never played any games because there was never a lull in the conversation. And there was a lot of interesting information coming out from other people on there too, about different things and whatnot. And some people were having trouble with such and such, and they asked, and other people gave them solutions and answers to that. So I think everybody had a really good time. I think another one is being planned for November. I am not going to be a co-host of that one because I'm going to be busy before that time comes up working on my own fall retreat. And I have a date. now for the fall retreat. It will be October the 22nd, Saturday, October the 22nd. If you're on my mailing list for the retreat, you will get a detailed explanation of what's going on, how it all works, and everything like that. That won't come out until about mid-September. And I will also be talking about it here on YouTube. So don't, if you're not on the mailing list, that's okay. You don't have to be on the mailing list to participate in it. It's an all-day thing. It's free. It's always free. There are prizes as well. And I have 3 guest speakers, and that's what I was waiting for, is confirmation from my 3 guest speakers that that date was good for them. And they've all said October the 22nd works for them. So that's great. And I think you're really going to enjoy the speakers. I have Adam from Adam Sews, and I'm not really sure what each of the speakers is going to talk about. I've given them some suggestions. With Adam, I thought it might be great if he could talk a little bit about how he got into sewing, and also about his store. And like I was just saying, he makes all these fantastic bags. He also makes characters, stuffed animal type things too, which are really quite neat as well. So I thought maybe it'd be interesting for him to talk about that as well. But I do leave it up to the guest speakers to decide exactly what they want to talk about and how they want to talk about it. I have Lynn Reinhardt from Cotton Arts Studio. You can check her YouTube channel, and I have interviewed her before. All these people I have interviewed, so you can go back on my channel and find those interviews. She is a certified quilt evaluator, amongst other things. She's also a teacher, like a sewing teacher, quilt teacher, all this kind of stuff. She has a very varied and experienced background. So I'm hoping that she might talk about the whole process. How do you evaluate a quilt? Which is be kind of timely with what we were just talking about now. And Chris O'Neill from Sew the Distance. It's her YouTube channel. And she collects antique quilts. And she talks about what you can learn from an antique quilt, about, you know, the time, the materials, everything by looking at the quilt. And if you've never checked out her YouTube channel, you should, because her discussions of those kind of things, and she does other things besides just talking about antique quilts, but she's very, very interesting. So I'm really thrilled that I've got all 3 of these people to come on. It's a varied set of presentations, which I think will make it interesting. And yeah, so more details on all this will come out about mid-September, when I have more things finalized at that point. Okay. So next week I'll have a new demo up, and it's using my quilt path, and I show you how I set it up to do an edge-to-edge design. Now, I know for those of you that don't have a long arm and or quilt path, you might not be that interested in that, and that's fine. But I have had other people reach out to me and say they kind of enjoy seeing things about long arm, because even though they don't have one themselves, they're kind of interested in how this all works. So I will have that up next Tuesday. And the week after that, I'll have another demo, which I just finished making today, which is about how I bind a quilt, which I've already spoken about. So let's talk about fabric sales, shall we? Last weekend, Ultimate Sewing, my go-to quilt store here in my city, had a garage sale. And they're trying to make room in their store, because their store is packed for their seasonal fabrics right now, Christmas, Halloween, and everything like that. So they had a bunch of stuff out on sale. And I showed on Idiot Quilter this week what I bought. You bought some fabric, didn't you?
Yeah, I bought some fabric, but it wasn't really stuff to make shirts out of or something like that. So
Oh, I thought you bought shirts out. I thought you
No,
bought some
no.
of the 3-meter stuff.
Yeah, I bought 3-meter stuff, but it was for it's not really stuff that I wouldn't consider making a shirt out of.
Oh, okay. What do you make it?
It's more what I call inside bag material
Oh.
or inside pocket material.
So what you're saying was ugly.
No, it's not ugly. It's just that I'll buy material that I semi like, but not enough that I would make a shirt or something out of it. But I think would look okay if you're making a bag or something like that. the interior of your bag is not necessarily something that gets shown a lot. So I buy fabric, which I consider is good material to be used for inside a bag, and it's on sale, so it's cheaper. So,
Okay. Well, yeah, and I
or
what?
inside a pocket, you
Oh,
have to
okay.
line your pockets for when you're making pants and stuff like that. And I use material that is that I've purchased that is cheaper cotton on sale somewhere that nobody ever sees the inside of your pocket. So
And if they do, they're a pickpocket.
yeah.
But not a good pickpocket either at that rate. But
And see, some people will use really cheap quality cotton for the inside of a pocket, but I like the fact that it's a good quilting cotton or whatever that is in the inside of pocket. It's just maybe a pattern that I don't really care for. So
well, yeah, when you say that some people use cheap stuff on the lining, I don't think that's a good idea in a
no, I
bag.
know because it can easily, well, especially in
Rip.
a pocket, you can easily
Well,
rip
yeah,
through it. Yeah, so
sticking your hand right through your pocket and that kind of thing. So, that's not a good thing to do with that. Um, Now here's a market item though. I watch some of the knitting uh, vlogs that are on YouTube, and they're all about bags, but small bags for keeping like their wool and their needles in for a project and stuff like that. And there's two guys on there, needles at the ready. I don't know how many bags they have, but they've got a lot of bags, and they talk about where they came from. And there's all these people online who make these bags specifically for this, and they do them out of cute fabrics and stuff. And they look like they're pretty much a fast kind of thing to go, but people gobble them up um all over the place. So there you go. Maybe we could have a market where you make those. But I think after a while you get really
yeah, I
bored of
know.
making that stuff. Um I've got stuff sitting over there in the corner that I want to make a Christmas bag out of, but I've quilted the fabric already
Yeah.
for it. I want to try see how that will work out for a big tote kind of a thing. Um but I haven't got around to it yet. And I'm going to do some embroidery on it as well. But yeah, that's a project sitting there waiting to be done, kind of a deal. So I bought some fabric too. I bought 3 meter pieces. Again, they were not fabrics that I would necessarily, well, I would use those fabrics in a quilt in bits and pieces, but unlike a shirt, I'm using like little pieces, right? So if it ugly fabric, this actually the fabric I bought isn't ugly, it's mostly batiks. But even ugly fabrics in a quilt you can get away with it because you cut them up in smaller pieces. Whereas if it's in a shirt, well, you see all of the ugliness in its full glory. So I bought some of that. Um, to be honest, I don't know, maybe we went late in the day. Um, but there wasn't really anything on there that I really thought was a fantastic
Mm-hmm.
deal. I mean, okay, the fabric I bought, 3 meters, was $24 for a 3 meter roll. Well, that's $8 a meter. That's good. That's really good with that. And there was a couple of half-meter bundles that had 5 different fabrics in them, batiks as well. And I did them, and they were $47, but it was 25% off of that, so it came out to like $27 or something like that. Now they were $45 and 25% off made it $27, which I didn't think was too bad for 5 half meters of fabric in a bundle. I bought a couple of those, and they won't come amiss because they're batiks, and I use a lot of batiks. Um, there was a Singer sewing machine, a featherweight, sitting there, and $500. Looked in really great shape, and well, I know that it would run and everything because Shirley wouldn't be selling it if it didn't, and the whole bit. Um, I thought about buying it. Came with a travel case and everything with it, the original travel case. I don't know what year it was or anything like that. Um, because everybody's talking about featherweights, but Walter talked me out of it.
I didn't talk you out of
Yeah,
it.
you just said, what do you want that for? And I went, well, I don't. What are you going to use that with? Well, I'm not. So
Well,
I
you could
don't
have bought it, but where are you going to put it?
bend over.
Oh, okay. Haha.
Uh, I don't. It's like everybody buys these featherweights, and it's like Berninas. You hear enough people talking about something like this, and you end up drinking the Kool-Aid and doing it yourself, and then afterwards you have regret, buyer's regret. So no, I didn't buy it, and I'm not going to buy it. I don't have a feeling. I have a feeling she did not sell it. that day. I've had a few people online here tell me when we mentioned it in Stephen and Walter Live last week, say that that's too much for it. But then others have told me, well, it depends what the serial number is because some are more valuable than others and all this kind of stuff. So I don't know. Well, I didn't buy it, but it was there. I was tempted. And apparently the one thing that put me off was one of the staff said it smelled like her grandmother in the case. And I'm not really sure if her grandmother's still alive. So that would make a difference on the smell. Maybe. Or maybe
is it a nice smell or a bad smell?
I don't know. Or maybe grandma never washes or she farts a lot. I don't know. You know, is that nice nursing home smell? Well, anyways, I didn't buy it.
Well, I used to work when I was a teenager. I worked as an usher for a cinema, and I guess in those days, in 1980, no, it'll be 1970s, they would have a special day where they'd have the seniors come from a nursing home, and they'd have a day where they would show a film for the seniors for a nursing home at the theater. They'd have a day out type of thing, right? And one of the girls I worked with said, "Oh no, they're coming in. The ones from the seniors home, they all smell like shit."
We're seniors though now.
Yeah,
they're right.
So they all smell like shit. So sure enough, they came in, and yeah, they all smell like shit. Hopefully they don't smell like that anymore, but in the newer homes that they take better care of them. But yeah, that sort of sticks in your mind. So when somebody says it smells like grandma, does it smell like?
Yeah. Okay, that's an unfortunate thing, but yeah, true. So anyways, why I was bringing this up is now's the time to get your Christmas fabric because it's all on sale, both online and in the quilting stores. You know, beat the rush kind of a thing. So don't put off. Goes with your Halloween stuff too. Now, having said that, I know that Kawartha Quilting 2 weeks ago had a big sale on like Christmas in July. And I bought some. It was 20% off, I think. I'm not sure if Shirley's going to put hers on sale when she puts it out. Supposedly she's putting it out, well, next month, August, which is next week, and that kind of thing. So we'll see what the prices are like. Shirley's prices, though, are always pretty good. So, I mean,
you don't really need a sale to shop there. So,
and also because I've bought several sewing machines there, and we've bought our sewing machines there, she gives people a 15% discount on most things, including
I thought it was
fabric.
A 10% discount.
I thought it was 15.
That was 10.
Oh, I'll have to look next time. Well, either way, you get a discount on it. Okay. Well, I'm pretty sure it's 15.
No, it's 10 because she said before if it's a $15 fabric, then you're buying it for $13.50.
No, okay. I'll look next time, but whatever. Anyways, it's still a discount, and that's really cheap. Okay, like that's why I said you can't beat Shirley's prices on fabric. So we'll see, because I just ordered a bunch of Halloween fabrics that I saw, and in fact, on Idiot Quilter this coming week, I reviewed the quilt store that I bought this fabric from, but I didn't buy the fabric before I reviewed the store. It's while I was reviewing the store, I saw this Halloween line that I had never seen any place else, and I really liked it. And they're a place that's located outside of Ottawa, and well, you'll see it on the Idiot Quilter, so teaser alert here on that one. And I may have the fabrics to show you because supposedly they were supposed to arrive today by Canada Post, and I have my doubts about that, but we'll see. They might be sitting in our mailbox as I speak. I don't know, but I will show that to you. But they had it on sale as well when I bought it, so that was okay too. Wasn't much of a sale on it because it's seasonal, and I think seasonal fabrics tend to be a little bit more pricey than your regular all year round kind of stuff. So that's why I say now's the time, because they have all the new lines out. They probably have some of the stuff left over from last year out too, and they're trying to get rid of it as well. So now's the time to buy. Also, it won't be picked over yet, but it will be very soon. If you leave it till the end of August, I can guarantee you that the fabric's going to be picked over. So don't don't snooze or you'll lose on that kind of thing. Um, so patterns. Someone asked me this question, and I a few weeks ago they'd put this in one of the comment things. They want to know what I thought of, because they'd heard me complaining about some of the patterns I've done that are ones like those Northcott ones that I had from the Quilts from Hell. What makes a good pattern for me? And I imagine with sewing, with shirt sewing, you have the same problem. So let's start with you. So when you're looking at a pattern to make something, what for you makes a pattern, or what if you could have the perfect pattern in terms of instructions and everything like that, what would it have to have in it?
Well, it has to be easy to follow.
And what do you mean by that?
Well, it has to have the basic components in that. It has to tell you what material to use. It has to show you the sizes and how much fabric that you require, right? It has to show you, it should show you how to lay out your fabric, your pieces out onto your fabric for cutting. Not that I usually follow that, but anyway, there's, it needs to have a methodical method of construction for like a shirt or something
So
like
when you
that.
say
So,
methodical, what do you
you know,
mean?
you do the first, it tells you things like which pieces to interface and which pieces to start with, and show you pictures of how to, not just words, pictures of showing you what has to be done so that you can visually see what needs to go where. There's some places that, like when they're doing a shirt pattern, they'll leave things or skip things out of, like the layout of the buttons. They'll assume that you already know how to put buttons on, so they may just sort of skip right off of that at the end. They don't even necessarily tell you. Other ones will give you a template and help you place your buttons or something like that, right? So that's important to me. I think a pattern should have more information than I need, not leave things out. Like one of the patterns, that one complaint of one of the patterns I had was that to set a sleeve in to a shirt, for instance, there's usually a single notch and a double notch on the sleeve, and it's to orient which way the sleeve goes in, which is the front of the sleeve and which is the back of the sleeve, right? And sleeves are usually shaped in a certain way that you could, if you're an experienced sewer, know visually by seeing which is the front and which is the back. But I always forget which is the front and which is the back. So I always rely on the notches showing me which is the front and which is the back, right? And some, apparently some patterns will leave that off, the notches on the front and the back. So they take the assumption that you already know how to sew a shirt and know which is the front of the sleeve and which is the back of the sleeve. And I've done enough of the shirts that I still don't know which is the front, which is the back. They don't have the notches in it. So
so I think that would be key then.
yes, they're key elements in there. There is sometimes instructions on how to do sewing in a shirt where you end up, because of your own knowledge, doing it in a different way. You always have the option to change it, but it is each component should be visually laid out and explained well as to how to sew each one together. They also should tell you what the seam allowances are for each of the garments. Sometimes it's 5/8 of an inch, sometimes it's 3/8 of an inch. Things like that.
Yeah. Okay, so basically what you're saying is you want lots of detail, you want some visual aids, which I think is important because not everybody everybody learns in a different manner. So, you know, you're covering the verbal and you're covering the visual learners.
There is some places that actually have put up tutorials on each pattern on how to sew the pattern together.
You mean like a YouTube video?
Like a YouTube video, and actually that's a real bonus to have that, because that's in addition to the pattern. It shows you how to put things together. So
yeah, in fact, if you do a bag, if you've never made a bag before, then I really strongly suggest you go to by Annie, Bags by Annie, and get one of her patterns, because most of her patterns also include a very detailed YouTube video. I think you pay like $5 extra for that. It's an add-on to the pattern, and it's always there, and you can go to it. And her videos are absolutely excellent. I always watch them. I even watch them when I know what I'm doing, just to make sure I haven't missed anything. Um, and I really like that. Now, wasn't there a pattern or something for a shirt, or your sewing teacher, he was doing for some lady in Europe or something, and he said they were horrible?
Well, actually, there's a sewing group that I made a few of their patterns, but usually I did it in a class through an instructor, and so the instructor would read the pattern first, right? Is a company that produces a lot of men's line clothing, which actually the patterns themselves aren't too bad. It's called Wardrobe by Me. The only problem is her pattern descriptions are often lacking. They have things that are missing in it. Like,
So she's
I
making
said, like
assumptions.
she's the one that had a pattern where the she assumed that you should know where the front of the sleeve and the back of the sleeve was. And then there was another one that I've seen in her patterns is where she'll do the whole construction method of the shirt, but then leave off the finishing part, like where you put your buttons and things like that. So, and it's been, she has pattern testers to test her patterns, but apparently she doesn't take good, she doesn't often apply the feedback that she gets from the
She doesn't
pattern
take constructive criticism.
Right. She doesn't take constructive criticism. So people that have done testing for her have stopped testing for her because they've been frustrated that she doesn't take the advice that they give her.
Well, that's not very good business practice right there. You should.
But I mean, she does have some nice patterns and stuff. If you are a little bit more experienced sewer, you would be able to get through most of the patterns, no problem.
What's the name of the?
It's Wardrobe by Me.
Oh, Wardrobe by Me. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, when you're looking for patterns, sometimes you're limited as to what you've got available. So if you've done a shirt before or something like that, then you should probably be able to follow her pattern. But it's just there are some things that are lacking in her patterns.
Well, actually, a lot of the things you said about that would apply to patterns for quilting that I've done.
Yeah. Apparently, Vogue patterns, whether they're for men or for women, are often difficult to follow. I have tried to follow one Vogue pattern, and I have run into issues with the pattern before. So, but that's only the one Vogue pattern. But I have heard from other sewers that Vogue pattern instructions are often difficult.
Well, didn't Ron Collins, who you took those courses with, he's designed patterns for Vogue?
Yes, he has.
And he said that they will not change. Like, he has a better way of doing something that's easier or whatever.
He said that he had provided Vogue with patterns and instructions, and Vogue has gone in with their experts and changed the instructions as per Vogue, what their guidelines are, and have completely rewritten his instructions type of thing to a way that he said that didn't work for him, or wasn't really the way he would have described how to put it together type of thing. And he says sometimes they are not always the easiest to follow.
Well, that's not good. Well, with quilting patterns, one of the things you said too is the mythology behind it. It should be logical. And yeah, step by step. I hate going through a pattern for a quilt and it says you get to halfway through it and then it says, now take your 5 HSTs and now assemble them like this. And you go, well, wait, where did you tell me that I was to make these HSTs, half square triangle pieces, before? So I thought, did I miss something in the pattern? No, I didn't miss anything. They may have had a little diagram showing what was HST, but they didn't say when to do that and to cut it. And, if you cut everything out, and I don't really recommend this on all patterns, but usually a pattern for a quilt will start off with, here's what you need for your fabrics and the amount. Then it says, this is what you need to cut. So you cut all your pieces and assemble them all, like get them all organized and everything, and away you go. However, sometimes within the pattern, they will have left something out in the cutting instructions, or they've told you the wrong thing to cut. And then you get halfway through the pattern, you're going, did I make a mistake? This isn't working. What's wrong? And there's nothing more frustrating than that. So yeah, step by step, do this first, do this next, and keep that order like logical to follow it along. I think the best thing any pattern designer could do. Now, I know writing a pattern is extremely difficult. I certainly wouldn't do it with it. But I think all pattern designers need to keep in mind, treat your instructions like a beginner is going to do it. An advanced person can skip over those sections or do it their way and use the pattern as a guide. But if you write it in such detail that like a beginner could understand it, then there's not going to be any confusion for anybody else.
Now, exactly. That's the way it should be for shirts too, is that you got to put it out there like for somebody that's never done one before.
Yeah, because then you won't lose your clientele for it, for one thing. So don't make assumptions that people know like where the front or the back of a sleeve is or something like that, or that thing. And even in terminology, if you like in quilting, there's a lot of special terminology. Like I just used some HSTs, half square triangles, WOF, width of fabric, and there's a bunch of other ones, FQ, fat quarter, you know, all this kind of stuff. And if they're using those short forms in a pattern, and if they have not explained, if they just assumed you knew what those meant, no. I'll remember the very first few patterns I did, I was seeing this WOF. I'm going, wolf? Wolf, what's a wolf? Cut 2.5-inch strips wolf. Well, I didn't know what that meant. I had to look it up. Oh, with the fabric. But even then I had to look with the fabric up, because what's with the fabric? Well, I know now it means from salvage to salvage. What's a salvage?
I mean, there's some basic terms that you really need to know before you start.
Before you start.
Too. Like Steve says, with the fabric, and things like when you're sewing garments, you have to know where the grain line is on the fabric, and things like that. So, and those are things that I don't necessarily think need to be in a pattern, but it's general knowledge that you really need to know, because like for instance, garment clothing always shows you how to cut the pieces according to the grain line of fabric and stuff like that. So
yeah, so the pattern designer should not make an assumption that you know all the terminology with it. If they put a little legend right up at the beginning of the pattern for you, and many do with that, but there are those that don't, so they need to do that. And I like the idea of visuals, a picture showing you, and sometimes, or even a diagram. However, one pet peeve I've got about diagrams in patterns, they don't necessarily do the patterns in color. They may do the cover of the pattern in color, but the rest of it's done in black and white shades of gray. And sometimes it is very difficult to figure out which way a block is supposed to be turned, because it's an integral part for the secondary pattern. And they'd have like little cross hatching, but it looks very close to the gray color on another part of it. And so you need to sit down and analyze the pattern before you do anything.
Yeah, like clothing patterns often have a blank side and a gray side, and the gray side is supposed to be the underside of the fabric, and the blank side is supposed to be the front of the fabric.
Well,
or what do you call it, right side of the fabric.
Well, one of the problems I had talking about this with this quilt, all right, in the pattern, you see, if you look at this closely, you see it's a repeated pattern with the strips. And you think, well, this is really easy, because all they're doing is it's flipping the pieces around. And one piece is not this whole piece you see. Oops, I got that. Make that blow up. It's only 5 strips. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 here, and then 5 here. And that is a piece. And then you put 2 of those pieces together to give you this design. But when you move over here, it's flipped upside down. And then it goes this way. Okay, so there's 6 blocks in a row. Then the row below it is the same thing, but mirrored. It's just upside down. Well, that doesn't seem very complicated. Guess what? With the fact that these are random fabrics, if every block, if you were using the same color across the whole thing, like your blocks had 5 different colors in them and they were the same in every block, then it would be easy. I don't want to tell you how many times I ripped rows and blocks out of this. In fact, when I got it all done and I laid, before I put it on Lucy to quilt it, I laid it out on the floor like it is here. And I'm looking at it and I think there's something wrong down here, down the bottom corner. And I couldn't figure it out. And then it dawned on me, this one block I had turned the opposite way. So these gray parts right here were coming out from up here, like on this one. Now, at first glance, you wouldn't have noticed that if I had left it that way. But I knew there was something not right. So I had it all sewn. I didn't have the borders on it yet, thank God. But I had a rip out along this seam and I had a rip out along this seam and then flip it around and put it back in, which it's not hard to do. It's a pain in the butt. But I ripped out a lot of things in this one to get it right. And you wouldn't have thought it would be that complicated. But the reason I'm telling you this is because the pattern was done in grayscale, not in color. Well, they couldn't do it in color because regardless of the cost to print in color, is simply because their colors aren't going to be the same as your colors. But they didn't even label each one of the strips. If they had labeled the strips, I started doing that myself to keep myself straight. And even then I was still getting confused with it. But I'm a little bit geometrically challenged. So that could be part of the problem with this. But when they told you how to put these blocks together, they went and wiped out on what they had: block 1, block 2. So this would be block 1, this would be block 2. Oh, you can't see that because I don't have it on the screen. Anyways, they took the pattern and they wiped it out and made it white on one of the blocks. Supposedly so you could see it better. Didn't help me. But anyways, I found it confusing, but I got it together to work. But I'm telling you, there were times when, well, you heard me going, and going, what's wrong with this? What's wrong? It's not right. But how do I fix it? I don't know. But I got it eventually. So yeah, that's the problem. So visuals are really good. And what you said about them doing YouTube videos or videos for it.
Yeah, if you have a YouTube video, sometimes it helps to visualize what you have to do.
Except for the case of that Northcott quilt that I did, that I had all the problems with, and none of the blocks were fitting together properly, and I didn't understand what she's talking about. She finally put up a series of videos, and she did it completely different. Some of the instructions were completely different than what she had in her pattern. And even down to, and I talked about this before, to a tool. She was using a special ruler for one of the things. Never mentioned that in the pattern. That has to be the worst pattern I have ever attempted. In fact, I never finished it. I changed the whole pattern to suit my purposes for that. So anyways, yeah. Now, I learned something very interesting about pattern writing, though, when I was at the International Stitch Marathon. There was a couple of people there that have published patterns. So I asked them this question. I says, why is it that some patterns have things all marked in 1/8 of an inch? And I said, if I see that in a pattern, I'll stay away from the pattern. I said, I don't understand why a pattern cannot be designed in increments of 1/4 of an inch. Any pattern. It's just going to change the overall dimensions of the final quilt, but does that matter? You know? Because you put that on the quilt, this is the size it's going to be. I was told that there are certain things that end up being 1/8 of an inch. And I said, I understand that. If you do half square triangles, where you cut the actual triangles and then put the 2 triangles together to get a half square triangle. But I said, there are methods whereby that you can trim down and get the 1/8 of an inch, but you're using 1/4 of an inch for it, you know, different methods for making half square triangles and things like that. Why don't you explain that in the patterns? Here's the answer I got. One, it makes the pattern longer physically. And some of these publishers of patterns give them a word count or a page count. They can't go over that. So they are restricted as to how much information they can put in. So they put in the minimum. And they make an assumption that people who have been quilting for a while know the other methods for making like a half square triangle or a flying goose or whatever kind of a thing. Okay, but I still think that's a problem with it. So, but anyways, that was interesting to hear it from a point of view of a pattern maker. They also told me that they make absolutely no money on a pattern, that the company, they decide what the price is going to be, and literally the pattern creators get pennies, like pennies.
Yeah, I know that for the clothing manufacturer, the clothing like for this Ron Collins or whatever, he sells the pattern outright to a company like Vogue, and Vogue basically owns the pattern, and he only gets whatever he gets paid for the pattern, the initial cost of the pattern. So whatever, he doesn't get royalties or anything like that on the pattern.
So there's other factors to be taken in consideration when you see a bad pattern. Maybe sometimes it's not necessarily that it's a bad pattern because of the way it was written. It's a bad pattern because of the way it was published. And that's something that a pattern creator obviously does not have any say over. It's at the whim of the publisher.
Right. So, like, I mean, it's like with the Vogue instructions, like this Ron Collins says that Vogue basically owns the pattern now, so they write the instructions based on their formula.
Yeah. Which I think is a prick move.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, you have people writing you patterns in the whole bit, and then you rewrite them to suit yours, which may not be the best way.
No.
Yeah, and I would say that would limit sales. Or, well, it probably doesn't limit sales in the point, because once you own the pattern, you can't take it back.
No.
And you can't open it up in a store and read through everything and make a decision on it. So, you know, now, mind you, with quilting patterns, they usually package them in a way that the bottom is resealable and you can pull them out. And although quilt store owners really don't want the patterns to be pawed over, if you ask in a quilt store, can I see this inside, because you know I want to do this one, but I just want to make sure that I can, they'll actually take it out of the package and let you read through it.
I mean, that's where it's nice that nowadays a lot of times for clothing you can buy PDF patterns. And a lot of times PDF patterns are much cheaper than the printed patterns, because it's already gone through the printing process, and you're buying the tissue paper and you're buying all the hard copy of the instructions and everything else. So they can run you quite a lot of money, whereas a PDF pattern is quite a bit cheaper. Okay, you still pay for the pattern and you get the PDF of it, but you have the opportunity to read through it. And if you've only spent $10 for the pattern, then you might think, okay, I'm not gonna make that pattern or something like that. Whereas if you paid $40 for a paper pattern, which is not unusual to have to pay for a paper pattern, you may think twice about paying that $40 if you're not sure if you're going to make that item or not.
Well, if in a case like what you're saying about Vogue, if you've had a bad experience with a Vogue pattern and you see one and you see it's Vogue, you might go, not going to risk it.
I don't think so.
You know, kind of a thing, unless you're really an experienced sewer and you're just using the pattern as a guide.
Yeah.
Kind of a thing. So it's true. Well, it's like in quilting too. There are certain patterns, like I won't touch a Northcott pattern again. At least not one that's done by this one particular person. They have other designers for them. But I will always buy a cozy quilt pattern. And that's what actually, that pattern that I just showed you for the winter quilt, that was a cozy quilt. And that's why it was more me than the pattern in that case. I was just getting really screwed up in my mind. It was almost like I was dyslexic or something with it. But cozy quilt patterns are excellently written, always with that. So anyways, I thought we'd talk about that. And just a couple of things before we leave here. I am being interviewed by the guy who sews. I have interviewed him before, and he approached me a couple of weeks ago and asked if he could interview me and no one's ever interviewed me before. So this is going to be interesting. So we're doing that tomorrow, and um, I imagine he'll post it afterwards. I'm not sure. He does something where I think some of his interviews are actually live on YouTube, but he does them through Zoom. So I'm not really sure how that technology works. That's something I was going to explore. I got to look into that because I'm not sure how you tie that in from what I know about how we do our lives. So that'll be interesting. But anyways, I'm looking forward to that. And well, I was going to talk about a little problem I had with the quilt path, but I don't think I will bother with it because this has gone on long enough today and it's nothing really serious. And if you don't have a quilt path, you won't know what I'm talking about anyway, so it won't make any difference. So I think that's it for today. Thank you for joining us. And if you've got suggestions for topics, please send them to us, please, 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 because we're scraping as usual. Anyways, see you later. Don't forget about Craft and Chat next Wednesday, 1 o'clock p.m. See you there. Be there or be square. Okay, say goodbye, Waller.
Goodbye.
Bye, all.